So, Ruth, it's to the Contemplative Path Through the Crisis website. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce you to those listening and watching this session, so that we can learn from what you have learned throughout your life about service, about action, about contemplation, about compassion, about entering into the inner room of your heart. And maybe we could begin by recalling the award that you've just received, a papal award. I think it's called the Bene Merente Award, given for people for their long and exceptional service of the Church, which you richly deserve. Can you tell us a bit about what that is? I think you have, I asked you to have it in your hands, so maybe you could show it to us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and first of all, congratulations on behalf of the community and behalf of us all for that. It's something that you richly deserve, but which also honors you, but also is a great joy to our community to be able to praise you for that. So, can you tell us a bit about why they gave it to you, and why you were seen as a Mary Magdalene? You told me.
Well, first of all, was honored and humbled to receive it. Many people have been involved in my work with Christian meditation and with SEVAL, and I think this is also for them. And also for women, 4 women were honored by the Church. And I think, women really are the glue of society. And for the Church to honor 4 women, I think was a big achievement for the West Indies and the Church in the West Indies.
What did the
I think the Archbishop thought about it because he felt that there were, in the life of Mary Magdalene, she was the first to announce the resurrection of Christ. She was always there to support the bishops, the priests, to build the body of Christ. And he felt that many women were doing this in the Church, the Universal Church, and they were going unrecognized. And I think this spurred him on to, to give this honor to 4 of us who are working in very different areas in the Church, but all trying to support priests, support bishops, and to build the body of Christ. So this medal is for women as well.
Well, congratulations. Could you tell us a little bit about SEVAL, which has been a very major part of your life, and Father Jerry Panton, who...
Well, he was the founder, and the early days of SEVAL, he left a prestigious teaching job in a big school run by the Spiritan Fathers, of whom he was a member. And he left his job, and it was soon after our Black Power riots, where people in the lower income communities felt they were neglected, which they were. And he left his job in teaching and went up into the hills. And I think he just didn't know what to say or what to do. And he said, well, he asked the famous SEVAL question, how can I help you? And it took a long time for him to be accepted and trusted by the people, because in the beginning they said the CIA had sent him, the Archbishop had sent him, the government had sent him. And he continued day after day going up that hill and talking to people, listening to their needs. And about 3 years after he started, I met him accidentally. And he said, why don't you come and see me? And he talked about his work. And I was teaching in a government school at the time, and I was very frustrated by the educational system and the pressure from the parents to make the children pass an exam. And I was very happy that I really felt I needed to spread my wings and do different things. I felt trapped in the educational system.
How old were you then, Ruth?
I was in my 30s, my early 30s. And I had been teaching for about 8 years, 12 years actually, I was teaching in the school. And then we started our work with the Poor with a Philosophy, which he developed and which we kept alive up to this day. of attentive listening, that you go into a community, you don't presume you know what people want. You listen to them, you listen to their needs. And then the philosophy of respectful intervention, that when you go in there, you do what the people say they want to do, not what you think they want to do. In the beginning, they wanted a basketball court, and we worked with them. And sometimes that same group, because they got the confidence in themselves, were able then to work together and set up an early childhood center. Most of the people wanted education. In those early days, it was challenging. It was hard work. It was long hours. But somehow working with the poor taught me a lot, and I think prepared me for meditation. Working with them, the poor people are very dependent on what others give them, what others do, providing things, providing food, providing education. And then they have a sense, especially the older people, a sense of acceptance. This is what I have to go through. I can't get myself out of it without help. And they have a sense of gratitude, a sense of accepting whatever comes to them, living moment by moment, because they can't plan. They have no money to plan. They have no ability, sometimes no motivation to go and to do anything. So there's a funny sense of acceptance, patience, because they have to wait long lines in government offices to get help. And it taught me, I was living in a zone of poor people, but they became like family, and I trusted them, they trusted me. We set up programs for their children, and that was important. And then I was in religious life, and there seemed I used to go back to religious life, and whereas with the poor, nothing was planned, things were disordered, things were at the moment, there was sometimes confusion and crisis that you were dealing with. And then I went back into religious house where everything was ordered and prayers were said and food, their needs were filled. And I was like in two different zones, and these zones were colliding. And I realized that I was almost at the point of leaving religious life. And then a sister had gone to Montreal and met John May and came back all excited. And she gave me a small cassette tape, and she said, you should listen to this. And I put it down. I didn't want to hear another sermon, or didn't want to hear anything about anything. I was just in crisis. And I listened to the tape. After about 2 weeks, I said, let me listen and give it back. And as soon as I listened to that tape, something clicked inside of me. This was the missing link in my life. And I started to meditate, and immediately I felt that my life was changing. I realized I needed space, and I then asked permission to live alone. I lived alone for 6 years, me and a dog. And during that time, I was able to anchor myself in meditation. I had a space to meditate twice a day. I was still working and working hard, but when I came back, there was space. There were no more prayers to say. I just concentrated on meditation. And little by little, my life began to get back on track. I began to appreciate my vocation, my religious community, whom I visited twice a week. And then accidentally, I met you. You had come to give a retreat to our sisters. I didn't make the retreat. I was making a private retreat in the same house. And I had just come back tired, and I put my bags down, and a knock came on the door. We have a visiting priest, so we have nobody to drive. We want to take him to the Caroni swamp. And I did not bless you or priest. But I put my bag down, and I went to the Caroni swamp, and you were the priest sitting near to me. And somehow meditation came into the conversation. And we meditated that night and that morning, and then you were gone. While I was living alone, I felt this urgent need to share meditation with other people. I brought a group of my friends together, some of whom stayed, most of whom left and never came back. But little by little, I felt a deep passion that the way meditation had changed my life, that it was the answer to many of the problems that we were facing in society, which is noisy, which is dysfunctional in a lot of areas. And so I began to share, and people began to hear about meditation, and people like Paul Harris from Canada came down to give talks, and Paul from Canada as well, the Canadians helped us to set up. And then I got in touch with you somehow, I can't even remember how. But then when we started, the community at that time in London was so supportive, because once I needed materials, I got them the next day. And that really helped to build the community. And it just went on. It's like going into 30 years now. And since 2010, there has been a big expansion. People are searching for spirituality, especially this time of COVID. So many more people are coming online to the groups. And then we had the big expansion where the bishops, because the Archbishop himself, who was the Bishop of St. Vincent at the time, he became very interested. He, as a student, was meditating in London while he was studying at the meditation center. And when he became bishop, he invited me and some of the leadership team to join the, to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we gave talks. Then we went to Barbados, and then another bishop heard about us. We went to Dominica. So now we are in 8 different islands, from Antigua, Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Tobago. And the people there, everybody that we have helped to meditate and to explain meditation to and meditate with, there has never been anywhere where people have not been very open. And more recently, I think you gave a retreat to the bishops for a day or two. And since then, well, of course, with COVID now, we can't go to many places, but the bishops have been very supportive. Every bishop in the Caribbean now, I think those who are not meditating are now meditating and promoting it in their islands. We have a strong leadership team. We are 8 of us in the leadership team, and they have been doing a lot of work. I have had some health problems, and while I was sick, they were the ones who went ahead and did everything. And I think meditation has been the savior of my life. It has helped so many people. There are doctors cardiologists, one in particular, he says, before I give you medication, I want you to do meditation. And he sends people to me, and it is amazing the effect that it has on their lives. And I think in these days where we have violence and confusion, if people can only anchor themselves to be with the Lord, life will change. And it does change. And people begin to realize that there is something deeper, a center in themselves that they can delve into, that they can anchor themselves, so they can come to peace. And even if there's confusion all around them, they have a path that they can follow. And I myself, when I'm in crisis, as I have been in the past year with health issues, when there's something to be done, sometimes I just drop everything and I do a meditation. And as soon as I get up, sometimes I'm grappling with a problem for a long time. And as soon as I get up for meditation, I know exactly what I have to do. It always amazes me. So life was going on very well for me for a long time. Meditation is going good. I trained people to take over SEVAL. I was in Bonbo. And then I came back to Trinidad, and within 2 weeks, the ground was taken from under me.
Yeah.
And I I was totally taken aback because, to make a long story short, I went for a simple procedure, picked up a bacteria in a nursing home, which caused my lung to collapse. I was drowning in my lung. They went in with a probe before they couldn't give anesthetic or anything, just went straight through my ribs with a probe. I passed out and I was in ICU. I was then back to the ward, and then they discovered my pleural sac was full of water and pus. I had to do another operation. Back in ICU, they only gave me a 20% chance of survival at that time. The doctor didn't want to touch me. Back in ICU, 4 days on life support. They didn't think I would make it. I got through that, went back to the ward, felt a little better. I couldn't walk in the beginning. They had to walk with an oxygen tank and a therapist near to me. And went home finally. My sister looked after me for a few months. And then a doctor gave me medication, didn't agree with my stomach, and I started to bleed again, back into ICU. Came back out, was going well, and then they discovered breast cancer. So I had to go back in, another operation again in December. And then in March this year, the stomach erupted again. It wasn't healed. More pints of blood. I think I have more pints of blood belonging to other people than my own. And right now, I finished radiation. I'm feeling well. God has had my back. And if it were not for meditation, I suffered a lot in the hospital. I was 5 weeks on my back, as if on a cross, because I couldn't move. I had tubes in my neck, in my hands, and I just couldn't move. And my side bled for 3.5 months, first with a machine, then with a bag. And I look at the cross sometimes and I say, Lord, your side bled for half a day, mine bled for 3.5 months, so hello. But meditation helped me through that time, first of all, to accept that this was God's will now, and that whatever He put in my life, it was for a reason. And I think He made me realize again all the things I had learned before. It came full circle with my meditation. Acceptance of life, living in the present moment, being compassionate, because being ill and sick myself, I am very much more compassionate now when I see people on their back. And life has just changed for me, and I'm glad I'm still alive. Maybe for some reason, I'm still trying to find that out. But I have been blessed. I have been loved. And I'm here.
And something of the reason why you've come through all of this is to do with Bombo, isn't it?
Well, I have tried to become totally involved in meditation several times. But the Lord keeps saying you have to wait a little longer. So I went to Bonbo. I did 5 weeks there. Everything was going well. I was supposed to go back in June, and then I got sick. And then I was supposed to go back this year, and COVID came. So I'm ready, but it seems that God is saying just a little more patience. I would like, having spent most of my life, 47 years working in very active, draining ministry, that I felt the balance of years, whatever is left, that I should dedicate those years to walking the meditation path myself and helping others to grow in meditation. Training leaders, I would love to spend some years of my life in Bonbo. I spoke to our provincial, and the trend years ago was the Europeans came to the developing countries on mission. And I felt now this was a mission from the developing countries to Europe. That has been accepted, but patience is being called for. So once I can safely travel, I hope that will be my destination.
We're waiting for you.
I know.
Listening to you, it's an amazing story, and the way you tell it is very moving and realistic and grounded. People might be tempted to ask you, are you an active contemplative or a contemplative activist?
I think both. You have to be both, because when you meet God and when God touches you, you want to go out. It flows somewhere, and that brings action of whatever kind, whether it's teaching others to meditate or helping somebody, or right now giving food hampers to those who can't afford food, doing one-on-one meditations with people online and in person. They come and they're stressed out, they want to meditate, and I guide them that way, doing whatever little. But I think action and contemplation has to go together. Otherwise, you begin to turn in on yourself.
They're not so different as we imagine they are either, are they? I mean, obviously, if you're going to teach meditation to somebody and you realize they're hungry, the first thing you have to do is give them a food hamper.
That's right.
Eat and show them and help them to feed themselves and get them on their feet, which is what you and SEVAL have helped generations of young. But that isn't so different in a way from listening to their spiritual hunger, which you also can do and relate to, and to teach meditation as a way of sustaining them, feeding them, and also helping them to help themselves. And some of the words you used at the beginning about SEVAL, your work with the poor, was, first of all, acceptance, gratitude, and patience. And I thought those are pretty much the virtues that we practice in meditation too, aren't they?
Yeah. That's why I say it came full circle. I didn't realize all that was going on. It's only in reflection years after, because I was young and active, and those things, I guess I absorbed by osmosis or something, but I really didn't realize what was going on until I reached crisis, But
you
I have to say,
You also said that in SEVAL you learnt, you and Jerry, when you were setting it up, I mean, you obviously had great organizational gifts and great energy and drive and authority. I mean, those are necessary for any kind of apostolic work or active work that anybody does in setting up something new, which you have done and which you sustained over many years. But you said that you learned in those early days, or the philosophy, two things, I think you said: attentive listening and
respectful intervention.
Respectful intervention, yes. And that sounded to me as if that explained something of how contemplative activism and contemplation that produces good action, how that flow or cycle is generated, and how the contemplation and action flow together. I mean, we see it. You were talking about Mary Magdalene at the beginning. Mary Magdalene is somebody who had a deep love and interior transformation through her relationship with Jesus before and after the resurrection. But she was also the one who ran to tell the good news, and is part of the history of the church. Maybe not the institutional church, but she's clearly there right at the very beginning and in driving it forward. But so this combination, I think, in your life and in your personality is a wonderful thing to hear about, and for people who are sometimes say, you know, I don't have time to meditate because I'm so busy. I'm not saying that you're giving them the answer, because everybody has to find it for themselves. But how would you deal with this practical question that many people have of wanting to meditate, but finding that their lives are too busy, too stressful, too overactive? What would you, I mean, you are now teaching meditation very widely, so how do you deal with that problem? Because it comes up all the time, doesn't it?
Yes, well, I tell them, because they're too busy, that is why, and stressed, that's why they need to meditate. Because without a balance in life, you will get burnt out. And you have to put your priorities right. And that meditation, somehow when you meditate and it becomes part of your life, you seem to have more time to do things. I don't know how that works, but that has been my experience. That if I know I'm going to be busy, I say I'm going to meditate. And then somehow the day you do much more, because when you're stressed out, I know when I'm stressed out, I keep moving things from one side of the desk to the next, and I do nothing. Whereas if you're more calm and more peaceful and more focused in what you're doing, you get a lot more done in a shorter time, maybe. So that I try to, busy people and business people, we have quite a number of business people in our own organization. We meditate once a week, the whole executive. They come together, we start work at 7:30, and at 8:30, everybody puts things down and we do a meditation. And this is all religions. We just meditate together as a human family. And of course, we have set up the John Main Center as well. So we have meditation sessions there, and it's used for a number of things. But I think it is very important. In fact, it is the more busy you are, the more important meditation will become in your life. And you will begin to feel that transformation and see that transformation in yourself. That has been my experience. And I just share it with people and say, listen, I was too busy. And I took 6 years to get myself back on track. So if meditation helped me then, it has helped me very much in my illness and accepting God's will. And even people said it to me, but you're taking this breast cancer and all this thing so casually. I said, if after 60 years in religious life, I cannot accept God's will, I think I was in the wrong place. So basically, meditation has been a part that is pure gift. And anything I think I have been able to accomplish, it has been like God sending the gift and I just sharing the gift with other people. Instrument, because this meditation, from the time it gripped me, I knew it was bigger than I was, that something else was happening that I couldn't explain. And my only reaction was share it. It's a gift to give it to others. So that has been me.
Yeah. Well, I must say, you say you have 60 years of religious life. We're looking at how young and healthy you look today. It sounds as if you must have gone into religious life at the age of 5. But,
no, that's right.
Anyway, but what I wanted to ask you was about the sense of calling that is really at the root of everything that we've been talking about in your life, and this marriage of contemplation and action, which has danced around your life for many years. But behind that contemplation action divide, if it is their divide, is this sense of calling or vocation that came to you. Maybe you could say something first of all about how that sense of vocation to religious life became conscious for you, and did you struggle with it, or how did you respond to it? And then maybe we could talk about what you feel the future of religious life is, because it feels to me as if you're expressing something that many young people and older people, but many younger people today would feel quite envious of in a way, which is both a sense of meaning, of calling, and of a kind of a certainty that this is what you should be doing. A meaning that is, you'd like to get away from it, like the prophets wanted to run away from God, but you didn't run away from it. And that's something that must be at the heart of any vocation, and the religious vocation, such as you've lived it, is an expression of that universal sense of meaning that so many people today are searching for. So could you say something about that? First of all, what was your own initial sense? What did you first think when you felt this call?
I think I felt the call as a teenager. I used to read the lives and so reaching out to other people and helping. I used to think of Damien and the lepers. I used to tell my mother I was going to go and work with the lepers, and she said I was crazy. But I grew up in a fairly Catholic family. My father never went to church until his 25th anniversary, but he made sure we all went. And when I left school, I was at the convent, and the thought used to come back, but I used to push it away. And then when I left school, I felt a strong call, and I kept saying, no, don't call me. Just call one of the other holy people in the class. I don't need this now. And I got a job at the bank, and I worked at the bank for 2 years. And the call used to keep coming back. I was enjoying life. I was going to the beach every weekend. I had a lot of friends. We were going partying. We were having a great time. And in the middle of a dance or something, I get this little thing nagging me. Is this all you want out of life? Is this what you're going to spend your life doing? And the nagging came on and came on and came on. And then I fell in love, and I was nearly engaged. And I had to disappoint the young man and tell him I wanted to enter. And he begged and begged and begged. And I just knew down inside that I had to do it, and I had to do it then. If I had stayed any longer, I would not have entered, because life was sweet. So I entered, and the rest is history. I was on the brink of leaving twice, because I felt religious life was not, I was not able to express myself. I felt there had to be a different way. And then when I was living alone, I realized that as somebody reaching out to others and teaching meditation, that there had to be a different way of religious life rather than this structured, ordered thing that we had to be. I almost felt trapped in. But once I began to focus on the meditation and on my life as a contemplative, somehow I began to get more appreciation for what the freedom religious life gave me to work with the poor, to have my needs filled so that I could reach out to others. And over the years, especially when I was living alone, because I was by myself for 6 years, I could have done anything I wanted, but I began then to appreciate my vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and to be able to really live it without a structure. I was my own structure. So those vows then became from inside. And I think with the meditation, that helped me to go inside and really appreciate the vows that I took. And that has helped me to grow, I think, so that, whereas before you needed an external structure to live your religious life, here was I living religious life with only God's structure, with only the call. And that call has continued. You know, it continued when I had to leave teaching and go to SEVAL. It continues now with my call to really go to Bond Road. I just feel that this is what I have to do. I can't explain it, but it is what it is, and it is a call, and the more you resist it, is the more it comes at you, you know.
How would you respond to many people today who would listen to what you've said and say, "What I believe you, you know, I think what you say is very authentic, and I just don't, I've never felt that. I've never felt that kind of call. I've never felt that clarity or that force, you know, pulling me from something that I like to something that I have to do." And maybe many people listening to you, I can understand what you mean as well from my experience. And I think it, you know, just as you did, I felt a call to one thing, which then stayed consistent, but took many different forms over the years, and led me, as it has led you, to different platforms and different expressions of this same identity or the same work. But as I said, many people would understand the authenticity of that, but also say, how could I feel that? How can I find, or they might just say, how can I find what it is I've got to do with my life? What would you say to them? And I know you worked with young people, so they must have asked you that many times.
I would say meditate, because unless you have to listen to the call. I mean, the call, I think the divine call is there for a lot of people, but we're too busy. And in the beginning, I rejected it as well. You know, I didn't want to do it. And even when I started meditation, I struggled with it for a long time, but somehow I just felt I needed to stick with it. First of all, you have to listen. And the only way to listen, I think now, is to be silent. Because once we have a lot of stuff going on in our heads and we can't withdraw, put that stuff aside and listen. So I think now in the world of today, it's even worse, because people have so many different options for their lives, you know. They can study, they can marry, there are a lot of options, and people tend to I find with young people, they try this out, and then after 1 year, they go somewhere else, and then they try out something else, and this doesn't work, and it's a sense of restlessness, and they really are searching. And I would say, you know, try to focus yourself, try to give that time to yourself to go into your own center.
Are you restless?
If it's a call, it will be there.
Sorry.
Am I what?
Are you a restless person?
Not now. I was. Sometimes I'm still restless. You never stop being restless. Once God is nagging you, you're always restless. But I try now to be more focused. I feel a call. I know I don't know how much longer I have to live. I'm going to be 80 next year. So whatever God wants for the rest of my life, whatever that is. But I think we need to be restless in order to find ourselves. Because when you're restless, you realize that you're becoming scattered. And that happened to me. I was scattered and I needed to focus and to be quiet, to be silent. And God is there. You just have to give him a chance sometimes.
Many young people, I think, as you say, we live in an age of choice. Maybe the COVID crisis has reduced the sense of choice that we have, but basically we live in a culture that's built on the idea of choice, consumerism, self-creation, making ourselves, even choosing our own identity. So but the burden of choice can become crushing and confusing. Whereas it sounds to me as if what you're describing is a different kind of choice. It's not choosing between an infinite number of possibilities, but it's choosing to be chosen, choosing to accept that you are called to something, whether you like it or not. And basically happiness, or not even happiness, but fulfillment and peace. Maybe we play the happiness card too often. It should be peace, really. But peace and authenticity depend upon accepting that. But also many young people today perhaps have higher levels of trauma, of anxiety, of loneliness. I mean, especially this present generation, which has grown up with social media, one of the worst addictions that's hit humanity, I think. And there's a growing number of the CEOs and the engineers and the brilliant people who invented social media now, who are coming out and saying, "My God, what have we created?" And we never knew it. A bit like the atomic bomb. We never knew that discovering atomic energy could create nuclear weapons. But anyway.
And yet that is a gift from God. It depends how we use it.
Yes.
It depends how we use it.
How would you respond to young people who would say, who are struggling with this sense of internal confusion, or maybe sometimes deep trauma as well? And they say, "I believe what you say, that meditation, just meditate, yes, but I can't really do it. It's so difficult to do in the sort of serious way that you're describing, and therefore meditation becomes something rather superficial, and you jump from one thing to another and you kind of skim the surface of meditation rather than plunging into the depth of the experience." What would you say to them?
Well, when a young person, as one came to me about 3 weeks ago, I said, "Come and sit with me in silence." And after about 3 weeks, I got a call and she said, "This meditation is really helping me." Young people, I think they are confused, and I think we confuse them more. And basically they're searching for something. But once you come to peace, and I think realizing that you have a center and that you can, I don't want to say take control of your life, because God takes control of your life, but you have a part to play in your own healing. And the meditation part is a healing part, not only physical healing, but more healing of trauma. And because people come to meditation, and one girl who came to the group said all of a sudden she started to cry. And I kept her back. I said, "What happened?" And she was a young person. She said, "Only when I was meditating," she said, "I'd forgotten about this. I was abused as a child. And she said, I haven't thought about this for a long time. And all of a sudden, all the same feelings came up. And to me, that was healing. And she, little by little, she found herself. But I don't know if there is any other way. The only way I know is to take the step and sit in silence.
Just start.
And people tell you, "I can't sit quietly for 10 minutes. I said, I've never heard a child say that, you know, but they can't, they say, they tell me they can't do it. And I said, well, come and sit with me. I will sit. You have to take their hand sometimes. And that's why I think Bongo is such an important place. Because once you are there and you get into the rhythm of meditation, you have to put down busyness, and the structure helps you to meditate, go to meditation. Even if you don't go, you know that it's there and that it's good for you. And if you don't go, well, that's, you choose not to go. But I think we have to hold people's hands and walk with them, especially if they have been traumatized, or if they are confused, or if they are stressed, and say, this is not the only way, but I can offer you a path. It's up to you. You have to choose. And come back to what you say, you have to make a choice in everything that you do, whether in marriage or religious life or single life or what job you take, you have a choice. So what meaning do you want of your life? Where do you want your life to go? Is success the most important thing in your life? Well, is that the way you want to go? What happens to everything else in your life? What happens to you in the process? So
I'm going to ask you now, because as you will understand, meditation comes before everything else.
yeah, we're going to meditate now.
I'm going to go up to meditate shortly with the community at 6 o'clock. But before I do, I haven't asked you to do this. I didn't warn you about this, but I was going to ask you. I know that the scriptures are part of your life several times a day when you pray, and your whole life has been shaped and nourished by scripture. So could you just spontaneously take a story or a passage or a phrase or a short episode from the scriptures that particularly mean something deep and rich for you, that over the years has continued to teach you something new every time you've returned to it, and share it with us and end this wonderful conversation, for which I would like to give you another Bene Merenti method. You need at least two, I think. One as a contemplative activist and the other as an activist contemplative. But maybe we could end this conversation. Thank you for everything you've shared. And come to Bombo as soon as you can. Maybe you could end this conversation with a short reflection on any passage of scripture that comes to your mind, rises in your heart.
I think the passage that always strengthens me is the passage from John, where Christ is saying, I am going to the Father, and that will come send the advocate, and I am in the Father, and the Father is in me, and we are in you. To me, the thought that the Creator and the Trinity is in me, has been a time when it is so awesome. I sit and I meditate and I said, God really in me? If God is really in me, if I really believe that, and that God is really in everybody, I wouldn't do this and I wouldn't do that, and I would never be depressed, and I would always have to be grateful that this power that is beyond me is actually in me. And to me, when things go bad, and sometimes I sit in the chapel and I see the little light on, saying that the Blessed Sacrament is there, and I look at that and I say, that light of God is in me. So, get with it and don't do all the stupidness that you do, and bring that light to others. And Creator is in you, and what more could you ask?
Thank you.